Hello and welcome to everyone out there in the Actual Tech Media audience. Thanks so much for joining us on this special webinar event. The topic of today's event is 5 steps to modernize your data protection program. This is presented in partnership with our friends at Zscaler. We've got a great event, a great educational discussion lined up for you here today. Before we get started, there's just a few things that you should know about today's webinar. My name is David Davis of Actual Tech Media, and I'm serving as the host of the event. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We want these events to be educational. We encourage your questions there in the questions pane of the audience console. Many of you have already said hello or good morning, good afternoon. We appreciate that. We also want your technical questions on today's topic. I know many of you out there are dealing with challenges around data protection, and we want to help you to solve those challenges on this event. So keep those questions coming throughout the event, and we'll be doing a dedicated Q&A session at the end of the webinar. We also have a number of handouts there in your audience console. I want to call your attention to. There are 3 links there. The first one is the Threat Labs State of Data Loss Report. There's the top SSE data protection use cases and the 3 essential requirements for flawless data protection. So make sure that you check out those resources here on the event. At the end of the webinar, it'll be my pleasure to announce the winner of our Amazon $300 gift card. If you're watching this recorded, of course, that drawing has already occurred. The prize terms and conditions can be found there in the handouts tab of your audience console. And then on today's live event, we also have a special Amazon $50 gift card for the best question. Hopefully this will help to shake some questions loose if you're not quite sure, if you should ask a question or not. Of course, we encourage your questions, and you'll be entered into this special prize drawing. And with that, it's now my pleasure to hand it over to today's expert presenters, specifically the host of today's event, Mr. Salah Nassar. Salah, it's great to have you on. I'll hand it off to you.
David. How are you? Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. Super excited to have everyone on, and equally as excited to have our panel on. With me, I have Venkat and Ash. Venkat, Ash, do you guys, if you don't mind, take a minute, introduce yourselves.
All right, I'll go first. Hi, everybody. Super excited for you to be here. My name is Venkat Krishnamurthy. I'm Senior Director of Product Management in the Data Protection team here at Zscaler. And Ash, please go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Ash Thakur. I've worn many hats in engineering, product management, and sales engineering. So, I have a clear understanding of complexities in integrating networking and security. And of course, I've been, working and selling data protection for the past decade. So hope to share my experiences today.
And that's exactly what this is about today. Look, there's a lot that's going on in the industry, specifically around data protection. Data just seems to become more and more important every day. We've gone through multiple phases in the past few years, and let's just jump right into it. So today's topic is the 5 steps to modernize your data protection program. And folks, we're going to get there very quickly, but we need to have a quick discussion about why do we need to modernize data protection? What are the things out there that are driving data protection? And then we'll jump right into it with the panel and talk about how to begin to modernize our data protection program. So without any further ado, look, we thought long and hard about what are the major items that are driving most organizations to adopt data protection. And the reality is everyone has some sort of a data protection program existing. So the topic here very specifically is modernizing your data protection program. And, government and industry regulations have been around, but they're always around, and they're always actually driving us as every year new data protection requirements within each regulation. They continue to sometimes this is a programmatic approach anyhow, right? And as we begin to deploy our data protection program to meet these regulations, we see ourselves having to add new technology, having to make a shift. The need for intellectual property as well right? Me as an organization, I have my crown jewels I need to protect. Without a doubt, we need to protect that data and get the right technology to do so, and create a program around that. And then there's a long list of changing landscape items that we're going to jump into here in a minute. But
Hey,
this is, I want to shift to Ash and Venkat. Gentlemen, when it comes to modernizing our data protection, government industry regulations, I've seen this impact our customers. I've seen this impact people in many different ways, organizations different ways. Can you guys give us a little more color around that topic?
Yeah, so I've talked to a lot of CISOs, and what is their bane of their existence? It's compliance, compliance, compliance. Why? Because global data protection regulations constantly change, and your organization needs to adapt and be prepared. Else, you're going to face fines. You're going to face reputation damage. I met with a healthcare provider, and they say, "Hey, Ash, we want to comply with HIPAA, and so we don't want any PHI data or MRNs or ICD-9s in Slack." And I obviously replied, "Sure. Do you want fries with that?" Those are the cases that we are seeing.
Yeah.
Venkat?
Yeah, absolutely, Ash. And as far as intellectual property is concerned, right? So obviously the proverbial Coke formula comes to mind, right? So Coca-Cola is interested in protecting that formula, and that is their crown jewels, and they would never want that to be outside. But it also takes its shape in many different forms. For example, I was talking to the CISO at a casino in Vegas, and they call them the whales, right? So the big clientele, the huge consumer customers that come in, and they have to protect their information zealously. They have to make sure that this list of that customers, their clientele, their high dollar value clientele, is never exfiltrated. So that also falls in this idea of intellectual property. It's not just the Coke formulas, but also your client list, the information about them, anything else that's of absolute critical importance for you as a business. So that I just wanted to add that color there.
Could even be your employee list.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Gamers, they have whales, and they spend tens of thousands of dollars on buying booster packs and weapons and access to new levels. I sure hope my son is not listening to this, because he would be beating me in Clash. But here's a fun fact for you guys. From the mind-numbing acronyms that get produced by the government, this one is priceless. CUI. And guess what it stands for? DLP. You're confused? No, it's not that Ash doesn't know his alphabet, but it actually stands for controlled unclassified info. That's a fun fact for the day.
I love that. So nice. Look, the reality is there's not a single organization that is prone to just one or the other. They're actually prone to all of them, right? Every organization, whether you're in a highly regulated industry such as healthcare, financial, manufacturing, retail, etc., every organization has employees, and if you just start at the foundation of that, you automatically have to adhere to a dozen of regulations just for the fact that you have employees, you have their personal identifiable information, you have their personal health information half the time as well. You have many different just employee-based regulations that you have to adhere to. On top of that, you have to compound that with the fact that these regulations continue to grow, continue to evolve, become more strict. The fines, right? Every government out there is trying to figure out, how do I ensure that organizations adhere to these regulations, and they continue to adapt them. On top of that, intellectual property. Intellectual property is a big one. And matter of fact, I'm going to jump into the changing landscape because I think some of that is hidden in here. So for instance, in intellectual property could be processes. It could be the way my organization manufactures specific products or software. So intellectual property is it is the coke list without a doubt, but it's sometimes also a process. But there are a lot of other things here that I would love for you, Venkat and Ash, to kind of walk us through. The easy one that I'm going to throw out is, hey, the shift to cloud. I mean, these are external challenges that as an organization, I probably didn't plan on, or maybe I did plan on if I have a solid digital transformation program. And over time, I see myself in a new environment. Sometimes digital transformation from an information security perspective hits me from left field, meaning it blindsides me. So for example, marketing decided to adopt Box to start communicating and sharing files with my partners and my sales force and my other employees. And information security had no idea about that, as an example. What other examples can you guys walk us through here on this list? I'd love to dive deeper into some of these.
Yeah, one of the things I would immediately say, right, it's apparent in our own lifetimes, we've seen this change happen, is data is pretty much everywhere. This whole, cloud transformation thing, it really frees up a whole bunch of collaboration and productivity improvements for end users, right, for all of us. But it does mean that there is no one place where you can just say, okay, my data is over here, secure, and I'm just going to have access controls for it or something. Like, data is literally everywhere. And that is actually a two-edged weapon. Like I say, it's a huge productivity improvement, huge collaboration improvement, but at the same time, it's a headache for IT departments, right? So this shift to cloud, whether it be, data in SaaS applications or, even your private applications that you're running in AWS or even your data center, like they have all of them have access to sensitive data, and we need brand newer controls to be able to protect that data from getting exfiltrated.
I think that's the crux of data protection in today's environment. Without getting too deep into that, I think everyone already understands that. But to an extent, it is something that some organizations, it always surprises me as I'm talking to a CISO, for instance, and they say, hey, we're not shifting to cloud anytime soon. And then they tell me that they're on Office 365 or that they're using Box or that they have Workday. And like, hey, maybe you're thinking your data center is still on-prem and you're slowly migrating that, but you're running your entire company in the cloud already. And sometimes that is missed. The SaaS application side of cloud migration is missed. But the pain there, I think, I was thinking about this morning as we were chatting. I created a file in my Google Docs. I took the link to that file in Slack and I shared it somewhere. And that was data being created in the cloud, data being shared in the cloud, absolutely bypassing any on-prem network, any on-prem endpoint, anything that my HQ would see. And matter of fact, I didn't even use any HQ specific technology, meaning I had my endpoint with my credentials logged into the cloud, no VPN, no tunneling back to HQ. And I think that is really the scary aspect of SaaS for many organizations as they're trying to think of, how do I adhere to PHI? How do I protect my PHI? How do I protect my IP when I don't have visibility?
Yeah, and I think for me, shortage of resources is near and dear to me, because not only is there a shortage of talent, companies now need to provide this new hybrid working model where you in order to retain and attract talent. And I've been trying to hire a bunch of engineers, and you can't really you have to have this hybrid model where you can say, yes, you can work from remote, and you need to have those engineers having the required skill set. So you can't really have this large army to manage complex on-prem DLP solutions or complex next generation firewall solutions because it's a huge learning curve to manage those complicated policies, and of course, their Jurassic dated UI, which will cause much more complexity right there.
And Ash, I think you're hitting a point that's pretty interesting here. If you look at all the new models out there, whether it's NIST or Zero Trust or Secure Service Edge, it all comes back down to consolidation. It all comes back down to process. And I haven't seen any new on-prem platforms come out, right? I mean, we are truly in if you haven't yet, you need to start thinking about how to redesign, how to shift to a cloud-based solution such as Secure Service Edge or Zero Trust. Most people still think about Zero Trust as an access conversation. Zero Trust is about protecting data, whether it's through access through an application, through an endpoint, whatever it may be. Zero Trust is truly, at the end of the day, about ensuring that the organization's crown jewels and their data is safe. With that,
I was just going to say there, Salah.
Talk to me about ransomware. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, it's all good. I was actually about to make that point. What are the bad actors out there? What are they looking for, right? At the end of the day, when they want to infiltrate into your organizations, all they want to do is to get the data out of there, exfiltrate data and then extort you, right, on the way in and out. So you need to think about what sort of platform you have in place to prevent that from happening in the first place, right? So data protection includes threat protection, includes ransomware detection, includes the ability to give you that fundamental security capabilities. Also, I wanted to add on the remote workforce piece that Ash, you were talking about. Not only is it that you need a modern system, that you don't need a huge learning curve and an army of individuals and people to manage infrastructure and also to learn about how to add new policies and stuff like that. But also the remote workforce in and of itself is a challenge, because it no longer is the case that everybody's coming to the headquarters and everybody gets the same security policies once they walk into the office, right? You need to apply the same security policies whether they're in the office or in the coffee shop or traveling or in the aircraft or whatever. So all of that demands a certain set of capabilities that your solution needs to have. And so that's what we also mean by this changing landscape and why you need to modernize your data protection.
I couldn't agree with you more. I recall maybe it wasn't that long ago, maybe 3 to 5 years ago, talking to a CISO, and the remote aspect of it was a small percentage of his employee base. And truly, it was more of the sales force, where at that point they called it their mobile employees, or I forgot the exact term that he used. But how much has the world changed just recently? I mean, look at us here. These are our offices in our background, right? We're not in HQ right now. And I think everyone on this call, I would bet, are also a bit remote. Hey, let's continue this conversation. While we're doing that, I am going to, folks, ask you to just take a minute and pop in. We have a quick poll. We just want to understand from your perspective and start engaging you here as well. And then what I'll do from this point forward is I'm going to start looking at your Q&A as we go through this conversation, and ask our panelists here if they could help us answer your questions, just to keep this more interactive. So with that being said, I want to go back to the company dynamics topic, because I feel like we left that out slightly. I think that is where serious challenges begin, in my opinion. You acquire a new company. There are a lot of M&A that's happening, a lot of mergers and acquisitions happening. I mean, that is, for me, early in my career, I started in IT, so I know, as a sysadmin, so I know, hey, we just acquired a company that have completely different servers, completely different endpoints, completely different networks, completely different tech, and now we have to come together as a single company. That, for me, is one of the biggest triggers to say, hey, we need to consolidate. We need to create a different approach to data protection. Have you guys seen that recently? Have you been dealing with that? Any examples you can provide around that topic, or any different angles we can add to that?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct, right? So imagine a situation where there may be two equal-sized entities merging, and how are you going to bring the IT together? And IT is one thing, but how do you bring the security and have that uniform security across everybody, right? So that's actually quite a big challenge. And if you have a whole bunch of on-prem resources and all this that you have to manage, or if the platform is not able to scale and able to manage this, it can be a huge problem. So I do think that that's another thing that people have to consider.
Absolutely. And matter of fact, one of those is, hey, we have a data protection program, you have a data protection program. Which one are we going to consolidate on? Yeah. It adds in new tech that we have to deal with. So this is kind of interesting because we mentioned this earlier, didn't we? The reality is every organization out there is truly dealing with every aspect of these topics that we talked about. They have to deal with government and regulations. They have to deal with protecting their intellectual property. Just about every organization is going through some sort of a cloud migration, cloud consolidation, platform change, and then company dynamics, as we just mentioned, is clearly a huge one. Some of these, if I look at some of our own research that we've done around this topic, when we did our Threat Labs report that we released recently, this brings up a few other, topics, right? For one, Venkat, like 50% plus of ransomware now has shifted. Now they're looking at exfiltrating data because look, folks, bad actors out there, they don't care about your PC. They don't care about your getting access to your S3 bucket so they can do more Bitcoin processing as much as they care about getting your sensitive data so they can turn around to the dark web and sell your data, right? Or extort you with that data, right? So, and the cost, and this is interesting. And by the way, this cost is not just government regulation costs, right? Actually, matter of fact, I'd say government regulation costs can be sometimes quite lenient on you, specifically if you've had a breach, unless your processes are really bad and you haven't tried at all to protect your data. But this is the cost to your organization. And something here, Ash, you brought up here earlier, your company reputation. Your company reputation, you just can't put a number on. Some organizations out there, I don't want to mention any names, but large social media organizations, large retailers who've had breaches where they've either had to do payouts to their customers to bring them back as customers, as incentives to come back and shop at their stores, whatnot. But the reality is, folks, on average, there are about 10,000 data loss events happening per organization, and I think this is the crux of the problem. Most companies don't even have visibility to understand that they have that many data loss events, and this is truly. A best way to do this is let's have a conversation about a customer that we talked to recently, right? I was talking to a very large airline, had a CISO of a very large airline. And the first thing that he said to me when we were talking about data protection programs is that he turned off DLP. Says, look, I need data protection. I have customers, I need data I need to protect, but I turned off DLP. Please don't talk to me about DLP. And the reason for that is some of that legacy technology truly sucks. Like it's hard to manage. Ash, I think you mentioned this earlier. The amount of resources some of these techs require just to manage, and they were looking for something new. So I'm going to shift to you here, Ash, and get you to kind of dive in a little bit so we can get to the topic of today. Why is a modern approach to data protection required?
Yep, thanks. So if you can just move to the next slide, I'd like to jump right into it. So some of these, if you can just build it out, some of these phases you've probably heard about twice before breakfast. So in fact, Venkat brought up, data being everywhere. And how often are we struggling with where is my data? The pandemic, and now these, Bay Area storms have accelerated digital transformation, because now we see that digital transformation, the acceleration has been the acceleration adoption has increased by reduced by 5 years. So the way we consume data has changed, because now you'll find it in unsanctioned SaaS applications. You'll find it in IaaS workloads in multiple environments. You'll find it in you'll have third-party access. So security has remained the same. So when you, for example, here, as you can see, it's tied to the company network. It's tied to either on-prem DLPs or on-prem next-generation firewalls, which leads to poor visibility. It leads to bad user experience. It leads to scale and complexity. So that is something that we have to address. And also, you can see here that providing a siloed CASB solution which leaves gaps in other areas. For example, there is the BYOD trend. Every user is now a remote office, and this catapults the need for data protection in this environment of my unpatched router over here, or these printers, or USB devices. So how do we protect that? Is there some sort of like a browser isolation that can help in protecting BYOD without an agent? How do you protect all of your devices at home?
So look, if I can summarize what you just said, traditional was very on-prem focused, had its issues. As we began our cloud transformation, we've tacked on technologies such as CASB, but it still doesn't solve for things such as BYOD, such as IoT devices accessing your sensitive data. But why? But from a data protection perspective, talk to me a little bit about, there we go. Data protection from this perspective, right? Why do we need a better way to do data protection?
Yeah, so as I was saying, you need a purpose-built platform with a purpose-built classification engine. You need a proxy architecture where you are the broker, where you terminate and you originate a session, and and the traffic is completely evaluated, not like not like a next generation firewall, which is a pass-through architecture where only limited buffer is inspected. You want to inspect the content. So to modernize data
in real time, are you saying you want to inspect all the company's traffic in real time?
Exactly. And without having to, push in more SSL boxes in there, you need to have this scalable infrastructure which can, expand and contract based on the requirements from the customer. To modernize this data protection, we need to actually transform the security world from being reactive to proactive. So if you're constantly, updating software and configs, you don't have, like I said, we don't have an army of people to really do that. So when you don't know what your sensitive data looks like, how can you predict what it looks like? When you don't know a variant of malware is happening, how can you predict that it is happening? So you want to leverage this historical data and use AI ML to become this force multiplier for security teams.
Right. Yeah. Right. So you need a modernized data protection solution, and I would dare to say that the majority of data protection vendors out there are using very legacy focused classifying engines.
Yeah, because I think there's a clear.
because they're not able to see these large number of transactions, right? If as you see over here, you need to be able to see these large billions of transactions, because the more data that you see, the essence of a true ML engine is correlating the data, telling the difference between true and false, making that difference better. So that that puts us, if you have all of that billions of transactions, that puts you in the lead, that lets you handle all these unknown threats and discover anomalies or new kinds of sensitive data. Sorry,
so
Venkat, I cut you.
Saying I need high volume. Look, for me to have a solid data protection, I need to start with having a highly accurate data protection classifier engine, right. And for that to happen, I need a solid AI ML solution, and then I need to feed it large volumes of data. So the more I feed it, the more accurate it becomes. And then what I do from there, I'm assuming then I take that engine and I apply it everywhere, without a doubt. I mean, that's
exactly. That's where you transition into the next slide, where if you only apply like a DLP on-prem, or if you only have DLP to the internet and unsanctioned applications, but you don't inspect apps like Microsoft, Google, Amazon, it will lead to blind spots. Attackers are right now, they are enjoying more success abusing these tier 1 cloud applications, because they deliver malware, and they use it because it's easily accessible, it scales well, and the employees trust these applications. So it's easy to deliver that malware. So you need to inspect these applications and apply granular policies that are based on a cloud app instance, so that you can eliminate this blind spot. And Venkat, you can talk about these other blind spots in the other channels too.
Well, hold on. Before we get into that, I think I do want to stop here and talk about, look, this is about the 5 steps to modernize your data protection program. And what you're showing me here is kind of like the holy grail, is where I want to be as an organization. Because this to me is screaming out, obviously, zero trust. It's screaming out secure service edge. This is consolidating all my environments into a single security platform. Venkat, help me out here. Help our customers out. Let's just jump right into it. How do I begin to get to this holy grail of data protection?
Yeah, I think a couple of things I wanted to highlight. I think based on what the conversations we just already had, right? There is a clear distinction between. I hope everybody's kind of now very much convinced that you need a cloud native solution, because you don't really want to hairpin traffic back to on-prem solutions. That's number one, right? So from an end user experience point of view, manageability of those solutions point of view, you will never be able to catch up with the growth of the cloud. So that's number one. So you need a cloud native solution that actually is able to deliver this data protection security you need in place, in exactly where the transactions are going on to begin with, right? So there's no hairpinning going on, there's no inefficiency of traffic. Secondly, you need that cloud native platform. All of them are not built equally, right? So you need something that is actually able to deliver that inspection that Ash was talking about at scale, right? Being able to actually do SSL decrypt of that as a proxy, being able to look at that and deliver that. Thirdly, this idea of using machine learning, using modern technologies to be able to automatically classify data, right? So Ash was making the point, you, in the beginning, as you start your data protection journey, or in fact, even if you've been in this journey for a while, it is actually maybe somewhat difficult or non-trivial to understand what is sensitive data and what is actually happening to your data in your environment, in your network, in your interactions as your end users are doing it. But if you use a modern AI/ML technology to actually automatically classify this data and give you that visibility, that will give you a massive leg up, so that you already are very much on your way to understanding that. And then maybe you can start to build your data protection policy based on the information and the classification that you're already getting back from the system. without you actually doing anything by hand, right? By the very fact that traffic's going through this cloud native system, if it's able to give you some signals back saying, this is the kind of sensitive data that is passing through and going to the cloud, and these are the controls that you may want to put in place, I think that's a huge leg up. So that's number one. Number two is, related to what you were talking about. If you could move to the next build out here, next couple of ones, really, we need to apply the same. Once you've identified this sensitivity, you need to apply this across all of your potential exfiltration channels, right? Whether it be data in motion as users are sending data to the cloud or to some other locations, being able to have those controls in place. Once it's in the cloud for data at rest for your sanctioned SaaS applications, being able to make sure that the sensitive data is not shared overly widely. Thirdly, for your bring your own device type of situation, like Ash was mentioning, how do you control access to sanctioned SaaS applications from unmanaged devices, right? Those devices that are not your property, not your organization's property. How do you control that? Providing data protection there. Also, being able to manage exfiltration channels from your endpoint itself, like for your endpoint, your laptop, the end users are maybe sometimes just for convenience or for malicious reasons, copying something over to USB keys, right? Removable drives, those kinds of things. Those are all exfiltration channels. Email, right? Personal email, corporate email, all of these are all exfiltration channels you want to handle with a singular platform that gives you a unified data loss prevention capability, data protection capability across all of these exfiltration channels. So hopefully, Ash, maybe I can ask you to show us a quick demo, one such system where you can actually do all of these things that I just outlined.
Yes, sure, definitely. So let's look at the dashboard here. So as you can see, Venkat, you can see the dashboard, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Great. So on this dashboard, you can see a high-level overview and the key metrics of different data types in the organization, along with the statistics and the trends about whether the data is in sanctioned application or is in unsanctioned destinations. And toward the bottom, we will see the list of users who have worked on sensitive data. You see a timeline view of files in motion, and then the top 10 applications. This timeline view, this can help with spotting change in trends very quickly. For example, if you see a sudden increase in legal documents here, it may prompt a discussion with your legal department on how they are working with sensitive data and how to safeguard that data going forward. So as you can see here, this ML based discovery is zero touch. You do not configure it. There is no policy configurations needed at all, and we start giving you that visibility.
So this is an example of using AI ML to let you know what kind of sensitive data your users are creating and sharing without you having to really be a data protection expert and know how to create policies behind it.
Exactly. And we have discovered this ML base through the ML powered engines. We have discovered these sensitive files, and then you can analyze more. And once you analyze more, you can drill down on the data and have a closer look at the content type. You can have a closer look at the applications, the destinations, as well as whether they are sanctioned or unsanctioned in nature. So we indicate risky types of applications by these colored dots, determined by our integrated native CASB solution. So immediately one can prioritize, hey, Box as one of the top candidates around which you want to you need to create some policies around, control the collaboration around it, and you can see that one can conveniently investigate what, for example, in this case, Ben has been sharing. So when you click on this over here, you'll see show in logs, and then it shows you all the logs regarding that activity that Ben was engaged in, uploading that documents to Box. And when we switch over to the policy view, you'll see that there was this was all deployed without a single policy enabled. This is the level of visibility. Organizations are in a great spot to kickstart either to kickstart a data protection program, or even build upon an existing one, or run some gap analysis on what is not covered.
That's awesome.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
From a one platform perspective, so as you can see over here from this, let's look at the policies. So in today's world of remote work and increasing collaboration, you need a way to see all the vulnerabilities across your organization. So you need to identify your threats first, right? You identify the threats to data first, and then safeguard that data. Data protection is never successful in a vacuum. So you first apply our cyber threat protection policies, and these protection policies include, AI-based phishing detection, or advanced threat protect ADP sandboxing, or deception technologies. So then you apply your DLP policies again on the same platform, the same client, and then you apply your CASB inline or out of band controls. You also can apply your ZTNA controls over here, so that you have private the right access to your private applications. And this helps you, from a one platform perspective, you should be able to apply these AI ML based policies to predict who may need access to resources in the future, and then identify these risky behaviors. I'll hand it over back to you.
That was a fantastic update. It was kind of mind-blowing if you think about it. So AIML told you what sensitive data you have. So now you have a clear understanding of what you need to protect, because not only did it tell you have sensitive data, it told you what users are touching, creating that data, what applications they're using to share that data, what file format they're sharing that data in. So that's pretty interesting. So if I see Venkat with legal documents in image form going to Gmail, right, that might be an alert, or it might be just a process thing to say, hey, we don't want legal documents going to personal Gmail. Let's just create a policy there. And then I can, within that platform, apply that policy on every possible channel.
Yeah, fabulous.
What else do you have for us, Venkat?
And then, if we go to the next, so I think some of the stuff that you already covered this actually way ahead of what we were going to say, Ash, right? So you can identify these anomalous behavior using these kinds of technologies, and you can create like policies and make sure that, the exfiltration things are kind of taken care of. But once you actually have, so we've been focusing on the policy side of things, right? So you saw here with a unified platform how easy it is to actually implement the data protection policies configuration-wise and management-wise. But once you have these policies in place, you also need, on the other side, for your IR teams or your data analyst teams to be able to handle the kinds of alerts and incidents that come up by these policy actions. And you need a unified platform for that as well, to make sure that that's actually doing the job that you needed to do. And the incident management and operations automation is a critical element of any data protection program, because one of the things you were talking about, Salah, was hey, the airline executive said I don't want this, but I think one of the reasons was potentially that they were getting inundated with alerts and they didn't know how to handle them. So, yes. and they didn't have a good way of actually understanding from their end users, hey, what are you actually trying to do here, right? So let me collaborate with you. Let me make sure that our policies that are in place are actually working for the productivity of the end users, right? So maybe, Ash, you can show us, this workflow automation capability, an example of that. So to round out the overall data protection program and data protection capabilities that customers ought to be looking for in their modernized data protection solutions.
You bet. So I'm going to do the same. So this is a game-changing team, because you could have all the geeky features that you need, but if you can't operationalize, you cannot. And if you can't, initially when we are talking about here reducing the alert fatigue and then being able to easily manage DLP incidents, that solution is going to go kaput. Right, someone's going to whine about it, and some executive might say, hey, this is unusable. You're not able to manage our DLP incidents, and then you can't really use, even if it has all the features. So workflow automation is important, because if done right, it reduces, remember the back to the first point, right? It reduces the resources, and here is how. This here, for example, is the landing page for the workflow automation UI, where the admins can triage DLP incidents and other incidents. On the very top here, you see key metrics to look at with the incidents, which can be filtered based upon various fields that we provide. Mm-hmm. Here we see a high priority incident. So, for example, there's a many high priority, medium, etc. incidents. But let's look at one. Now let me go back here, and let's look at one of these high priority incidents. Here are the juicy details of what Mark was up to. We see that Mark is uploading a file name invoice with credit card details to a personal instance of OneDrive. So we identify this as sensitive data under the trigger data field. So here we can see that, hey, this was, it shows you a snippet of the original file that contains the credit card numbers. So in this case, the admin notified the user to provide a justification. So you can see changed from user to a justification. The user receives an email with a one-time link. The email contains the same metadata that we saw and the violations for Mark to review. And then Mark will provide a justification saying, hey, you know what, this was manager approved. Mark does not need to log into this UI. Now, if the admin is not satisfied with this justification, the admin can escalate to the manager. And you can escalate to the manager and then close out the case, after taking whatever appropriate action is here. So the fantastic feature here is this full audit log being provided, which makes it easy to manage those incidents without having to switch back and forth between multiple applications, emails, and avoid tracking the closure of that incident.
So it's all, what you're telling me is I'm looking at the incidents happening within my console, and I'm responding to the incidents within that same platform. But what I liked here specifically, because I know organizations that have data protection programs, look, they know employees are going to make mistakes. There are going to be violations. They may have quickly skip through, that online data protection course so they can finish it at 100% so they can continue their day job. So they miss some of the processes as they go through. But the power of a solid data protection program is that feedback loop. And look, folks, the ability to be able to quickly respond, give feedback to that employee, let them understand, hey, you tried to use your personal box. Maybe you want to automate another process and say, hey, you should use the corporate box or use corporate, whatever SharePoint repository you have, etc. That is super powerful.
And that helps to reduce the time to triage the DLP incident.
Yeah. Yep. That's right. The forensics were all included.
And for the ability to automate a lot of those steps as well, right? So obviously you could do it by hand, but that whole workflow could, if the platform can actually automate that, so the emails and whatever Slack notifications, etc., go to the end users and supervisors automatically, that's even better, right?
Yes, great point.
So maybe we can move over to. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. I think we're about to say the same thing. I'm going to stay on this slide, but we're going to shift over to the Q&A section. I have a ton of questions here. From Michael, I won't say your last name. We have when you're saying zero touch on the setup, does that include not needing to go ahead and add the documents identification information to be able to classify?
That's correct.
So in other words, do I not need to build out any, without getting into the exact data match or whatnot, but does that mean I don't have to tell my data protection solution to actually know what to catch?
Yeah, great question. We are feeding millions of documents to our ML engines, and that's how we automatically learn what a sensitive document look like a financial document, or maybe a DMV, or mortgage documents, etc. So you do not have to do the legwork. We do the legwork for you, and you can apply those dictionaries and create your own policies depending upon what you see.
Yeah.
Hey, this is an interesting one. This is about adhering to specific regulations, but I'm going to extract another question out of that around integrations. So this customer, it looks like he has a lot of existing solutions. How do we integrate? We're talking about data protection in the cloud as a platform. What integrations do we have that can help customers kind of start to migrate or start to modernize their data protection solution?
Yeah, we have integration with. Sorry, go ahead.
Pretty broad question, but I would say that one of the, we, as a solution, you want to look to see, how does the new solution kind of integrate with your ecosystem, right? So if you have a SIM partner that you're working with, your Splunks and your QRadars, how does it work with that? You want to look at, from a threat protection angle, does it get signals from some other, threat protection capabilities, like some of the endpoint vendors and XDR vendors and so on. Does it work with a SOAR platform, right? Or maybe an ITSM platform like a ServiceNow that you might be using. So these are some of the ecosystem partners that you want to work with. And from a DLP point of view, does it support ICAP, secure ICAP, those kinds of things? You may want to look at all of those as a deciding criteria.
Yeah. Some of these questions are truly. No, go ahead, Ash.
The most important integrations that we have, from a data protection, are with Microsoft. We have with CrowdStrike. We have with AWS, and these integrations, for example, with Microsoft, you, in this world of third-party vendors, you do not want to just encrypt your data and now you can't share it with your third-party vendor. But with MIP, Microsoft MIP labeling, you can actually apply a label which says, you can share it with your third-party vendor, so it can go, the file can be shared across organizations. So we integrate with MIP, where you can apply the labels, where we can apply the labels for you, looking after we identify that this is sensitive data and based upon the categories that you have created.
Yep. Yeah, I love that. I was actually going to say something else, but I think you're right. I think the important thing for everyone to understand is, look, regardless of what you had before, like a legacy on-prem solution, or you have, over the years, as you were saying earlier, you've patched on different cloud solutions, such as Microsoft, which is a fantastic solution as well. However, when you get into the cloud platforms, such as a Zero Trust or a Secure Service Edge, you need that platform to apply to your web gateway. You need it to apply to, all your internet traffic. You need it to integrate, of course, with your sanctioned applications, such as your Microsoft applications. But what about your unsanctioned applications, right? That's where your web gateway comes in. What about your workloads? I don't know a single vendor out there, customer out there, that sticks to one cloud platform or another, meaning they'll have AWS, they'll have GCP, they'll have different buckets out there that they have their sensitive data, where they require technology such as ZTNA to connect to it and keep that secure to their private applications. you need that centralized visibility to be able to protect your data everywhere, as well as your your endpoint, as well as your BYO devices. So I should jump back to that slide. But my point there is, look for a solution. I don't want to advertise here, but look for a solution that integrates with your existing platform, with your existing solutions, right? Look for a platform that integrates with your existing solutions. Excuse me, I'm fumbling my words. Such as Microsoft, such as Box, right? Where a good example, Ash, if you don't mind me just continuing with that Microsoft conversation, take the existing data classification that Microsoft creates, apply that everywhere else, extend it, right? This is a 1 + 1 = 3 solution when it comes to what we're talking about here with Zscaler, for example. But we have a lot of questions, folks. I'm sorry I didn't get to all of them today. Fantastic questions. I feel as though I should have had another poll question on here as to what do you want us to dive deeper on next time as a follow-up, or if you want a follow-up to dive deeper on some of these specific questions. We absolutely would love to carry on. I mean, we could easily carry on for another hour, but we're at the top of the hour right now, and we do have to conclude this call. Please take a quick second to type in any requests that you want us to dive deeper on. We can get a lot more technical. We can stay at a high level. This one was a bit of a high level conversation, but I think a very important one. And we do have also, we mentioned a few things today. Specifically, I gave you a Threat Labs report earlier. All this content is available here for you to download. And with that, David, I think we are concluding the call.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great presentation. I learned a lot. I know the audience did as well. Obviously, by the incredible number of questions, there's a lot of interest in this topic. Like you said, we've run out of time. Thank you so much, Ash, Venkat, and Salah. Really appreciate that. Excellent discussion. And of course, thank you to Zscaler for supporting us on the event today. Before we wrap up, I want to remind everyone out there to check out the handouts tab there in your audience console for additional information on today's topic. Of course, thank you to everyone who joined us on the event today. And I want to announce the winner of our Amazon $300 gift card. This is going to Henry Pan from Washington. Congratulations. And we'll reach out to our best question prize winner as well. Thank you to everyone who joined us on the event. Take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.